Hey guys, Mike here. Well, today I'm going to be doing a video on basically the setup between a chiller setup and a water source heat pump setup in a modern building, basically. Typical modern buildings, that have been built since the 60s on. Now, not all of them have these setups, but the ones that do, have mainly this one from the 60s. This is more of a more new thing. But I'm going to talk about how they're set up and how they run. I didn't draw pumps, I didn't draw strainers. This is just simply how these systems are set up, and that's it. Just how they're set up and how they run, that's it. I'm not getting into how all the components work. That's a different video. This is just how these typical buildings are set up. Obviously, there's tons of different buildings with setups, but these are two very common and typical ones. So let's start with the water source heat pump setup. Obviously, we have a cooling tower. Now, each floor has a little water source heat pump unit, which the compressor is cooled by water. Now, most buildings have console units, but some buildings will have ceiling units and console units and all that good stuff. We have our condenser water risers, supply return, going to the tower, coming back. Obviously, the pump is in the basement. Ba-ba-da. Some of these little units, sometimes, if they're not getting enough water, they will put little circulators on here just to push it around if the line is clear, and it's just not getting enough flow. Some of these pumps are also on VFDs. You may have to raise the frequency, so, yeah. Anyway, each floor has a little water source heat pump. And, it's really simple. You could get it just by looking at this. They're cooled by the condenser water. So, all these compressors are cooled by condenser water. And it's cooled by the tower. Water comes up. Here's your supply water. So supply water, we'll start from the bottom. Supply water comes up, goes in, cools a little heat exchanger in there for the compressor, goes up to the return. Oh wow, yeah, goes up to the return. That return is going to the tower to be cooled, and then come back down to the supply and go back into these units and recirculate again. Now, you want to make sure in the summer when it's 90 degrees out, your water temperature is below 80, because sometimes these will go off on high head pressure. If the water coming back from the tower is 85, 90 degrees, that's no good. These things are going to be running mad hot. So, we had that problem over my dad's building, but that was a closed loop system. I'm not going to get into that in that video, but we had to put we had to spray water on the bottom of the coil because it just couldn't cut it. If there's anything I'm missing, I would love someone to tell me. I'm pretty sure M&HVAC will be watching this. So again, this is very simple. You have water source heat pumps, gets cooled by the supply water, your condenser water from there then goes back to the tower to be recooled and recirculate through the building. Now in winter with heating, you have a boiler down here, and this is a heat exchanger. The condenser water loop comes through the heat exchanger and goes and circulates through the building. Obviously, your tower is now bypassed. The tower's cut off. You drain the tower. Now it becomes a closed loop system. You want to slowly, you don't want to really, get a serious temperature change, but, you crack the valve slowly, you let a little hot water in. You want your loop to be in the 70s so these units can pull enough heat out of it. And then that just goes back to the water. All that cold water comes back to the boiler through the heat exchanger there and just gets recirculated, reheated. That's if your units are off the building boiler. Sometimes you will have an auxiliary heat, and this won't be necessary, but I'm pretty sure you would cut these off and drain the tower, just so it doesn't freeze and nothing cracks, So if I'm wrong about that, let me know. If I'm right about that, hey, cool. Alright. Now we go to our chiller setup. So obviously, in the chiller setup, the building has a main chiller. In this example, we have a multi-stack. Because a lot of apartment buildings, smaller ones that have chiller systems have multi-stacks. I don't need to do a big centrifugal chiller in this one. So, obviously you have a pump. Your condenser water loop just goes straight to the tower and straight down to the chiller in the basement here. And that's that. Chiller gets cooled by the condenser, water comes back down. You know the refrigerant cycle. Your chilled water side now comes up. You have a supply and a return chilled water line. Again, console units or ceiling units. The chilled water goes up, feeds each fan coil, because it's just a coil and a fan. And this could either be a 2-pipe system or a 4-pipe system. A 2-pipe system is these 2 pipes are chilled water in the summer, and in the winter you switch them over to the boiler and they become hot water. In a 4-pipe system, there's another set of risers that you have the 2 coils in each fan unit. You have a chilled water coil and a hot water coil. And that's why they call it a 4-pipe system. Supply return for the hot water, supply return for the chilled water. Again, obviously, I didn't draw pumps, I didn't draw strainers, but each of these units usually have strainers, backflow preventers, all that good stuff. Sorry for the shaking there. So, chilled water comes up, feeds each fan coil, goes back down to be recooled by the chiller. Usually, a lot of these buildings keep their water 52 degrees, 50 degrees, depending on the outside temperature. Now, the boiler here is its own separate thing. If, say, this building's a 4-pipe, this boiler will go through another set of risers to heat each hot water coil in these units, or steam coil. And that's it, you know, it's really simple. It's just maintaining these systems. Obviously, you want to make sure you have good water flow, your strainers are clear, so that way you prevent a centrifugal chiller, you prevent surging, you know, and all that. So, that's just a very simple setup of how these work. If I'm wrong on anything, please tell me. But other than that, that's pretty much that. I don't think I'm missing anything. So that's just a simple video, and I thank you for watching, and Mike out.